like every week.
Yeah.
Like you never practice.
And migraines can be serious.
Oh, for sure. But I don't know if you can like really, like, oh, this damn migraine again. like, did he have them every time he said he did? I don't know.
Yeah. It's just one of those anomalies.
But it's funny. Oh, I just kind of didn't think I'd like Debo, but now I do like him. I took him in the DLF mock at 206. I was pretty happy with it. It was him or Miles Sanders.
Did I end up taking him in my mock? I can't remember. I don't think so. I think I took Harmon, and then I took Snell. Because honestly, that was the last name I knew. That was the last name I knew.
Not a good name to know.
He's a productive rusher.
Productive, yes.
I doubt I'll draft him any other time, but yeah, only in the rushing game.
If he goes to Baltimore, he has a chance. That's about it. He's not a super impressive guy.
This is a weird time for me. I'm learning, since this is really my second off season, I guess, talking about what I'm doing. Because I like open it all up and say everything I know, let's retest it all and see what happened. And so I'm in this place where I don't have strong opinions on anything. I'm like, yeah, maybe it's all wrong. Let's try again. But with this class, there are so many players, like people we know are like, this guy could do it. And I look at them, I'm like, based on what I was saying last year, that's not true. But because I'm opening it all up, I don't go at it hard. But like Marquez Brown is one. I think, who is it? Ryan McDowell is all over his job. Someone big is like, oh, Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy did nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he's impressive. He's fast as shit. I mean,
oh, is that what it is?
Oh, he's Deshaun Jackson like fast.
There's a reason there's only really one Deshaun Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Andy Isabella's kind of intriguing too. Like, I think they're somewhat similar players.
I'm glad you mentioned him.
Like I'd rather take Isabella 2 rounds later.
Like there's even where I don't watch college at all, there's even the thing where I look at a player and I don't know if that's a small conference player no one else knows, but Andy Isabella sounded like that, but he keeps coming up for me too.
Yeah.
It's
He'll get into the second round, I think, eventually. Dortch, there's a lot of Dortch fans out there.
Yeah, I'm learning. But he's coming up high for me. I think he's him, Keyshawn Johnson, and Andy Isabella and JJ Whiteside or whatever. They look like guys that the production likes, but then the minute I adjust my draft round, they'll disappear. That could very easily happen, if you know what I mean. Whereas a Harmon and a Harry, why I like them is I think if Harmon's drafted in the first 3 rounds, I'm still really going to like him. Harry could pretty much go anywhere, and I'm going to like him. Almost.
What if he goes to Baltimore?
Landing spot's a little different, but yeah, I normally just bet on the player rather than the landing spot.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'll give it a plus, but very few negatives. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
I'm just salty about John Brown.
Yeah, John Brown's, let's face it, he's good.
You know,
not with Lamar Jackson, but
driving me crazy that everyone thinks that I just tweeted something.
Okay.
Mahomes and I was replying to somebody. Mahomes and Baker aren't sells.
Okay.
They're the biggest sells ever. Ever.
Can you get the same for Baker though? I would have thought he would be the buy.
He's a top 3. He's a top 3 quarterback already.
Oh, jeez.
That's ridiculous.
That's a little silly.
That's ridiculous. You can get Russell Wilson 5 quarterbacks later, or Cam Newton like 10 quarterbacks later.
What?
It's ridiculous.
Gimme. I mean, I'm fluctuating between Rodgers and Wilson at 1 and 2, and that's apparently not the debate everyone else is having. Like, why would you have any other debate with yourself? Silly.
Because people are just shocked by it too when I say sell Mahomes and Baker. Shocked,
right?
And so pissed. I'm just like,
the players I like and I want on my team.
Of course, I like them, but it's
like
just,
we were just saying about value. I mean, that's silly.
Mahomes is a top 30 pick in a 1 QB league.
Do you think? I know
Aaron Rodgers, I don't think ever was that.
I know people are getting these trades, but like I have Mahomes a bunch of places, and I'm not getting these damn offers. I hate to be that guy, but I'm like,
oh, like people were outraged when I said when someone traded Mahomes for Tannehill, Breida, Kerryon Johnson, a first and a second in a 1 QB league. I'm like, and they're like, that's not nearly enough. I'm just like, are you out of your mind?
I don't like Kerryon Johnson too much, but I'm also not a moron. Not really the point. Like, there's very few times if you can get a starting player at another position that you don't trade a quarterback for that. Right? It's quarterback. I'll start Eli Manning, damn it. Well, maybe not Eli Manning. Probably Eli Manning.
Oh, that's what I wanted to look up. Someone said, well, one of like the big draft guys, and I usually watch the Senior Bowl. I just haven't because I don't think it matters as much as I used to think it did. But one of the big draft guys was saying at the Senior Bowl, it was Deebo Samuel and everybody else for wide receivers. And Isabella was there, and David Sills was there, and Penny Hart was impressive, I guess, who I wasn't familiar with.
I was just looking him up actually the other day. He's okay. Maybe not enough from a small school prospect.
Penny Hart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's super quick. I didn't like him at the catch point from what I saw, but I really haven't done anything on him.
Right.
So I like Deebo. Deebo's such a smooth player, and he's got really good hands. That's what reminds me of Christian Kirk. He's just super smooth. He has easy speed, like really, really good agility, but now like and acceleration is fantastic. But I don't know if he has like really deep speed. I don't know if his 40 will be as fast as some people think it will be. All right, should we start? Are you ready?
Yeah, ready enough. I was just playing around. So I'm actually surprised I'm speaking so well. I've been having a rough time here of it, but it seems like I'm over it right now. So yeah,
a rough time with what?
Nothing this related. Just life's getting a little bumpy.
Why is that? If you don't mind me asking. If you don't
No, I don't mind you asking. I just don't want to bore you with it. Oh. But no, Rebecca's been sick for like a month. My savings are running out, and I'm having trouble finding another job. Is I guess the crux of it.
Yeah, it's the same issue she's had.
Yeah, I mean she's got ongoing. She's got a genetic condition, but it's been a rough patch where she's mostly sick at the moment. It's just rough.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
And the kids have been home from school because of snow and ice here. So. But
yeah, it's been brutal here too. Like my daughter had stomach virus for a week, and then I caught a little bit of it. Like it didn't hit me hard, but like my stomach, I just felt like out of it. My stomach was really upset for 2 days. I took a day off work, and it was weird. Like my daughter had a fever, like full on stomach virus, the first day. Day and a half, and then it was gone. She went back to school and was fine, and then the weekend came and she starts throwing up again, but no fever. Like she's fine, but just throwing up. I'm just like, what the fuck? So she's just got over that. I finally feel like myself again today.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
Brutal. I probably could have done it last night, but I'm glad we waited.
No, I mean, there's no reason we can't. So, take advantage of that shit. Got control over too little these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm just gonna keep playing with this. Okay. Oh, I don't need you right now, jeez. Okay. Gonna turn Twitter off so I don't get straining the. There's not ADP out on rookies yet, is there?
They have rankings.
We don't need to look up DLF or anything.
We can look rankings. Well, we could. I mean,
I don't know if we'll need it, but. Tooth pain too. That's fun.
Mm, 2018. Well, that says 2018. That's got to be wrong, though, right? Yeah, it says 2019. There it is. Now it transitioned over. Oh, DK Metcalf, Kelvin Harmon, Harry, Montgomery, Butler, Brown, Henderson, Brown, Harris, Jacobs. Jacobs is at 10. That's ridiculous. Riley and Matt have Bruce Anderson as their running back 3, and he's not even in the top 50 of their ranking.
I can't really comment on running backs too much yet. I gotta find something that's not draft capital on running backs.
Oh shit! I gotta plug my. thought my computer was plugged in. It is not.
Uh-oh.
Oh, good thing we didn't start recording. Damn, what's going on here? Why? Oh. My wife is not good with cords. It drives me crazy. There we go. And we're charging. Let's see where they have Debo. 22. Jeez. Yeah, and around 2 they have him. What do you have on JJ Arcia Whiteside?
He's coming up really well. I mean, relatively.
Okay. I haven't studied him like at all.
I'm just going to say I haven't dug, but just based on the production model, he comes up sixth in this class. It's pretty good.
Heard he's a red zone monster.
I can check that for you.
What the fuck, Rob? You are fucking out of your mind. When did he update? Oh. Because Mike Weber is his #1 rate. Oh, God, thank God. It was reverse. All right, this makes more sense.
Fuck, yeah. Whiteside didn't get less than 30% of his team's touchdowns in any year.
Yep,
you got 33, 39, and 48% of his team's receiving touchdowns. That's high. that's a problem right there.
That would make sense.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
And people don't like David Montgomery all that much.
He's just kind of waved at as like he's probably the running back 1, and then everyone starts talking about someone else. I'm like, okay.
I mean, he's locked and loaded RB1.
Yeah, so I'd like to know more about him, but no one talks.
But that's why I would take him at 101 as long as the draft plays out decent.
Yeah.
Just because he could have instant top 20 value,
Right.
All right, let's get going.
Okay. I got different headphones today. Very tilting. Get it out.
That should be our intro.
We're here, healthy, and, suffering death for the crossroads. All right, you want to count it down and I'll start recording? Is my sound okay, by the way?
Yeah, it sounds good. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to the Dynasty Crossroads. My name's Peter Howard at PA Howdy on Twitter. I'm here as I am every week with Jake Anderson at Jake Anderson FF on Twitter. Should really not have an right after that. Jesus Christ. Look at this. We talk about one player at a time from both a film and a metrics point of view, try to come to some sort of consensus or at least an interesting argument to provide an overall view of one player at a time. So a slightly different format than I think most fantasy football podcasts have. We enjoy it at least, and we hope you do too. It's weird. It is officially rookie season, and so we're starting to break into the rookies. Last week we started with Joshua Jacobs, John Jacobs. I don't know. Someone not
Jingleheimer
the running back. This week we're moving on to a wide receiver. We put out a poll every week at the Dino Crossroads handle to ask who we should talk about and trying to get some feedback for what people want to hear. Jake, you're normally the one that handles that. Do you want to tell us who won and who we're going to talk about?
Well, those are two different answers, but
I know.
So we put a poll out. We had who did I put in there? I put Andy Isabella. Let me see if I can even find that. I don't even remember who I put in the poll. Hold on. That should probably be able to answer that probably.
Probably. I can't. No.
Oh, Jesus.
This is your musical interlude.
Latest.
Could just say I put 4 wide receivers in there. At a push.
Where the fuck is it? All right, I'm ready.
All right. Should we just start again, or?
I don't care. It's probably easier to start again, right?
It is at this point, yeah.
Might as well.
I'm just gonna close this out and start again.
You want me to start over?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's do a new track. All right. Did you already start?
All right. Nope.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome back to the Dynasty. Hello and welcome back to the Dynasty Crossroads. My name is Peter Howard at PA Howdy on Twitter. I'm here as I am every week with Jake Anderson at Jake Anderson FF on Twitter. We talk about one player at a time from both a film and a metrics point of view to try to come to some sort of consensus. Let's call it a consensus and try to give a good overall view of what that player's upside might be, both in Dynasty and redraft formats for fantasy football. Yeah, I said everything. Wow, cool. We also put out a poll every week on our Twitter handle at Dino Crossroads, trying to get some feedback about who we might talk about this week. Jake is the one who handles our Twitter account because he's the responsible one. And so I'm going to throw it to you, Jake. What do you want to tell us about the poll? Who won? Who we're going to talk about? If it's the same person at all?
Yeah, there are 2 separate answers here. I put out a poll. Last week we talked about a running back, and I didn't want to hurt Peter's feelings. So we put all wide receivers in there this week. We put Andy Isabella. We put Marquise Hollywood Brown. We put Hakeem Butler and Riley Ridley in there. Hakeem Butler won 45%. But then I just noticed that Deebo Samuel's kind of stealing the show down at the Senior Bowl. And you actually just wrote an article on him. And it was funny because I had Deebo in the poll and I took him out. So we're going to switch gears, make an executive decision, and we are going to talk about South Carolina wide receiver Deebo Samuel tonight.
Awesome. I don't know why you switched it out for my sake. I think everyone knows at this point that I'm the running back guy. That's my favorite position, and I know more about them, obviously. But yeah, Deebo Samuels. And I did just write an article about him, so I should have something to say, I guess, I hope. But let me ask you to start with. It's a weird time of year for rookies for me because I pretty much break everything apart and re-examine everything. So all my hot takes from last year and the year before all get put under an examination, and I see if I still feel the same way. And so all my opinions are kind of sensitive right now to what other people think, which is I think it's fair to say not normally the case. And I know I'm feeling kind of at sea, I guess, on this class. I don't know. Excited about it overall. How are you feeling?
You know what? That was kind of the way I was feeling going into this class, is I wasn't overly excited. And, you know, I got a little bit excited about the wide receiver class, and I thought about it more, and we just kind of discussed off air. I'm kind of there with you too, where I'm a little bit disappointed in this wide receiver class. Even I think it has some good depth. I think it is a little bit overhyped. I don't see a lot of guys that have, you know, big time potential. For me, that's, you know, probably DK Metcalf and N'Keal Harry for me are kind of a clear cut top 2 wide receivers. And then after that, it's just kind of, I don't know if any of those guys are worth, you know, early to mid first round draft picks. So I'm kind of there with you too. But I think this class does have some good wide receiver depth. And I think that's one of the guys we're going to, you know, kind of break into tonight, even though I'm not sure if you agree that he's, you know, a valuable asset or not.
We'll find out. We'll find
Yes,
out. What was I going to say? Yeah. When Tyler Johnson and Brandon Byron, I forget his name now, Edwards decided to go back to school, the class went from 3 players who had really interesting profiles down to 1. And I don't know if that's just coloring my opinion of everyone else, the disappointment, I guess. But I don't know. I guess like I say, we'll start finding out with Deebo Samuels. So who do you want to start talking about him, or do you want to go first?
I guess it kind of sounds like you want me to go first.
I just wrote an article about him.
Yeah,
so I don't know if I should.
I think you should break down the article just a little bit for the audience.
All right, fine. Yeah, I wrote Deebo Samuels up for Dynasty League Football, which is where we both write, or at least we're both. That's terrible. For Dynasty League Football, which is both of our home bases in the fantasy community. I get tired of saying we write fantasy football, and then you say, well, I don't really write, and we have the same conversation. So I'll move on from that. But yeah, we both work for Dynasty League Football. In the article, I tried to end it on a positive note, where I think he did enough in college that you can't say he was a bad receiver. He was definitely a solid college receiver. And I think he's done enough to warrant interest at the right value, depending where he goes in the draft and to watch team. But his overall profile is one that speaks more towards an average wide receiver, one that didn't particularly stand out compared to those on the rest of the depth chart. Now, he did miss a year because of injury, and I don't want to discount him for that. That's not his fault. People get injured, and that doesn't mean they're bad players. But it does mean that a significant portion of his profile in college is missing, frankly. And that makes him harder to judge. And so we're left putting question marks around the rest of his profile as well, when he came back and when he left and when he was injured for a portion of one season as well. Now, my normal approach for that is to say, if we're going to throw out so much of his college profile, we'll end up with almost nothing. So I'm just going to, obviously we can't judge him on the year that he missed, but on the years that he was actually present on the team, I'm going to evaluate him as if he was playing full speed for that team. This is what I was able to accomplish. And like I say, he was definitely the number 1 whenever he was on the field, which is definitely a positive note. You would rather have that player be the main target for his college team if he's going to do anything in the NFL, because nothing but the competition doesn't get anything but harder once they enter the next level. Having said that, he wasn't able to distance himself enough from the rest of his competition that I can say he clearly stood out. And my overall conclusion is that while, like I say, in the right draft spot, with the right team, he could provide. He's definitely capable of providing value to an NFL team, I think. But in terms of fantasy production, I think he might struggle. He struggled to separate himself in terms of being a target while in college. And again, nothing is going to get easier at the next level. And so that's just a worrying sign. And that's really my, quick the quick version of my overall evaluation of Debo. He did enough that we should not ignore him, and we should definitely give him credit for being his team's #1 target when he was on the field, and can provide value in the NFL. But for fantasy terms, I worry he's going to struggle to stand out. What am I missing, or what what are you going to say I'm missing?
No, I'm not going to say you're missing. The question I have, and I think that maybe the question some of the listeners might have are, we obviously know Brian Edwards was there as well at South Carolina. How can you kind of go over their profiles and how they compared?
Yeah, Edwards, like I said, was one of the prospects that started making me feel down about this class in general, because the minute he decided to go back to school, one of the premier production profiles really disappeared. Now, like I said, Debo was the #1 target whenever he was on the field, but in the 1 year that he missed, Edwards not only took over that role, but he also expanded upon it, in that he was earning a lot more opportunity and producing a lot more yards for his team than Debo was in both years on either side that he was the #1 target. And that to me speaks more to Edwards having more to his profile than Debo when they were both on the same team. Now, we do have 1 year, I think, of Samuels, if I remember right. I'm trying to pull both of them up right now. Playing on the team without Samuels, but that was his rookie year at age 19. He only had 6.3% of the team's receiving receptions and 6.5% of the team's receiving yards. And again, it's hard to judge him on that since it was his freshman year. Most players do not stand out extraordinarily well in their first year, even at age 19. But again, because he missed that 1 year, and then we only have years with him with Edwards on the team, it's hard to really know what he would have done without Edwards. But the thing that's clear to me is when they're both on the really struggled to separate himself in terms of what he was able to produce from the team, and therefore, following that logic on, he wasn't separating himself significantly from Edwards at an older age on a team that was definitely prioritizing him as the #1 target in terms of the production he was actually putting out. And again, that's just one of the concerns. Edwards himself came up with as a top 3 player in this class. Samuels, because of his overall market share, his breakout age, and the comparison between his market share of yards and touchdowns to successful NFL receivers, actually ends up just in my pre-draft model, which is not the best model. Post-draft model is obviously better, but he comes out as wide receiver 33 in this class. Which is significantly worse. I think that's probably pretty clear.
Sure.
So again, he's someone that he ends up low in the model, but the model is meant to identify players that really stood out in their production compared to successful players in the NFL. That doesn't mean it's meant to capture everyone that can be useful or everyone that is good at the game of football. Mm-hmm. It's just how much he looks like past quality fantasy receivers since 2008 or so. So again, that's where in the article, when I broke it down more, we're going to have to look at draft spot, take in the combine, and see where that lands him, and then consider his situation when we know what his team is. All of that could add extra value, because I want to be clear on this. I'm down on Samuels from an overall production standpoint, but in terms of what he did in the opportunity, in the situation that he was in, he no way did himself a disservice. He produced well for his college team. The team was lucky to have him, and I think he did a good job. It's just that with trying to shoot the moon so much, looking for an NFL level, fantasy level receiver, the model and myself try to highlight players who stood out head and shoulders above everyone else. Edwards started to do that based on how old he was and the differences between his and Samuel's production when they were both the #1 guy. And Samuels did not do that. Doesn't mean he's bad. It just means there's less to make him stand out. I don't know if I've made my point here. I think I've got it out. I think that makes sense. Am I?
No, I think that all makes sense. And just to kind of go over Debo Samuel as a prospect, he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. He's 6 foot. He's 210. So his build is almost like a running back, and that's kind of who he reminds me of as a player. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, he redshirted his freshman year, so he's an older player too. He just turned 23 years old, so that's not something that is going to bump up his profile, make him look that more appealing. But yeah, I mean, he just had a lot of injuries in college. He missed 7 games his freshman season due to a hamstring injury. He only played 10 games his sophomore season. I just wanted to pull that up, where he had 59 catches for 783 yards and 1 touchdown. And then he broke his leg in his junior season. So he only played 3 games where he caught 15 balls for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it looked like he was off to a decent start there in that small sample size. And then finally came back this year. I'm sure that broken leg probably slowed his recovery time coming into the season. So I don't know if he was 100% coming into the season. But I watched a handful of his games from 2018 because, like I've said before, I generally don't watch a lot of college football in season. I scout these guys in the offseason for Devy purposes. So he's a guy that I was super familiar with, and Deebo Samuel's a guy that's been talked about in Devy leagues since his sophomore season at least. Really hyped up guy that I honestly, when I first watched him, wasn't overly impressed with, because a lot of Devy people that I learned from and read were really high on Samuel. Like, he was one of the top guys that people were excited about in the 2019 class. Actually, probably 2018 class, because he could have came out last year if he wanted to. So I was not a huge fan as far as the Devy circles were talked about when I scouted him the last couple of years. But going into this year now, and kind of seeing where he's ranked, and we can pull up DLF rankings as far as the consensus. I want to pull that up just 1 second here. I want to pull up the average. I believe he's 22nd overall, which puts him at that late second round. And we just did a DLF mock with a bunch of DLF writers, and I took him at 206, and I thought that was good value for him. So I think he's going to be in that mid to late second range, and I actually really like him there. He's not a guy that I would have been super excited about taking in the first round, but at a discount, I like this player. He's also a guy that, if you've watched any of the Super Bowl, the Senior Bowl, he's really stood out, and all the draft nicks are saying that it's the Deebo Samuel show, and he's a wide receiver down there, and everyone else is kind of second rate. So that's not a huge deal, but it's not a bad thing. But just kind of go ahead.
No, I was wondering, why is the Senior Bowl, where does that fit in your evaluation? Because to me, the Senior Bowl is meant to be the best players because they're the seniors playing against each other, so you get to see them in that situation. But because the best players aren't always the senior players, what you actually have is Deebo Williams competing against players with just as much of a mix as he was facing in college, right? I don't think it's...
Yeah, for sure. So Senior Bowl isn't something that I really judge players off of. I think it's almost like it's not as big as a combine, obviously, but it's just one of those kind of things on your checklist to see how they perform there. And if they perform well and you thought they were a good player, that kind of just, you put a check mark there and say, okay, he doesn't get dinged there. If he looks really bad, that's something that you might want to look back at his profile, look back at his production and kind of his tape evaluation. If you do that, and see if there was something you were missing there, or see if what's going on there. So it's something that's fun. And I haven't even really watched much of the Senior Bowl, and I usually do. And I'm sure I'll get around to it at some point. But, it's not a bad thing when he's stealing the show down there. But just getting kind of back into what he looks like on tape and what kind of player he is. I mentioned that he is kind of like a running back build. He's not very tall. He's 6 feet, but he's really stocky for his size. He's primarily a slot wide receiver. He did play outside a little bit at South Carolina, but I think he's going to make his money on the outside. He's not an elite speed guy. He did a lot of return specialist at South Carolina. I don't know if he has really deep speed or long speed, but he is fast. And the thing that I like about him, he has really good feet and really good acceleration. So the way he gets off the line of scrimmage and can set up defenders and get them moving one way and then turn the other way to create separation is really impressive. And he has really good soft hands out of a little bit smaller wide receiver. He had 11 touchdowns this past year, which is always a good thing out of a smaller wide receiver. Makes a bunch of one-handed catches, so he can high point a little bit for a smaller guy. And you like to see that build out of a smaller wide receiver because he does go up the middle a lot. He runs a lot of slants, a lot of deep post routes, and he's not afraid to kind of mix it up. He had 3 touchdowns against Clemson this year, which is always good to see. And he was playing really hard when they were down by 3 touchdowns. So that's also something I like to see, that he doesn't have a lot of quit for him. His coach talks highly about him, so he's a good team guy. Always has a good attitude, tries to get the best out of each day. So that's a good thing. But just getting back to his comparison a little bit, he's got a little bit of Percy Harvin to him, that running back build, playing wide receiver.
Right. And
then he also has, who else was I saying he kind of reminded me? Oh, Christian Kirk, as far as just being really smooth. He's a really smooth athlete. I don't know how he'll test. Kind of like Christian Kirk, I expected him to test in his short area quickness and agility drills better than he did. And for me, I really don't care, because if they show the quickness or explosion or burst on tape, I much care more about that than some random kind of exercise, drill that they're doing in shorts that they're never going to do on the football field. So football speed is obviously more important for me than time speed. But there's certain quadrants that you want them to test out in to make sure that they're not way below a certain kind of threshold there. But yeah, Deebo Samuel is a guy that I'm kind of really excited about now that he had a really good Senior Bowl, and I think he might test well in the combine. We might see his draft stock rise quite a bit here. So there's a chance he sneaks in the late first round kind of conversation. So we will have to see how that goes. That's probably not where I would take him. Like I said, if I can get him in the mid to late second, that's definitely a guy that I'm excited about, because I do like the player quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I've been reasonable. I think I feel more free to be incredibly unreasonable, or have an opinion a little stronger. And just to compare him for some prospects from the last couple of years, his production profile comes up in my pre-draft model, which is the one I look at, but has a lot worse predictive power to NFL success compared to the post-draft model. But we don't have the draft yet, so he comes up along with Jamon Moore and Marcel Aitman, and Chad Hansen as well is also in this rough area. Now, a couple of those names showed up last year, in that they got a couple of opportunities, and you'll probably recognize a few of them. Noah Brown's in there as well, I just noticed as well. Different people were higher and lower on all of those prospects, but they're not players that completely disappeared. There's some players that made a noise here or there that can make you feel like we had noticed something about them. And that's kind of exactly how I'm feeling about Deebo Samuels. I don't expect them, like none of these guys have, to make a big impact. Definitely not a big impact early. But there was a player on the depth chart whose name you'll notice and remember. They were good college receivers, and so maybe in the right opportunity. And for that reason, I think second round would be awful hard for me without at least top 2-round draft capital, or if a team really bites on them, maybe. But I can't see him climbing out the third round for me right now. What else was I going to say?
I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Sure. So as far as these guys' profiles, how do you account for lack of production, be it from injuries, and how can these guys, and not just necessarily Samuel, but just anybody that's kind of lacks production because of injury, how could they win you over, or it's just a guy that you're going to have more hesitation with because he didn't stay healthy, or?
Yeah, very much so. They're kind of locked into it, right? And like I said about the injuries, I can't discredit them, but I also don't want to discount everything they did in college. So I'm just going to value what they did when they're on the field. And Samuel's almost big problem is that he started late. And one of the ideas behind production in college and age being relevant is that the older you get, the bigger you are, frankly, or the speed that you were talking about he has more of that and more of that to compete. I also think it definitely went into his favor, and it will in the NFL as well, that he is versatile, right? And he played in the running game in college. He was more of a touchdown guy than Edwards ever could have hoped to be. I just don't find touchdowns relatively significant in terms of actually, I take that back. Edwards has been significantly more productive in touchdowns in the first 2 years of his career as well.
Edwards
but Samuels did reach a higher height so far. At age 22, he had 34% of the team's receiving touchdowns. And again, when you take in his running work, his overall production also comes up. And I think that versatility is as valuable in the NFL game as it is in the college game. But I don't think, like with Harvin, that's not you're going to need more. You're not going to be a good rusher as a wide receiver in college. Tavon Austin aside, not everyone becomes elite with that skill set, right? So, yeah, his real problem not his problem, but the problem from a profile perspective is that he was doing it later. Like not the only difference, one of the big differences between him and Edwards, to do that comparison you asked me about, is that Edwards was doing the same as he did in his first year, Edwards' first year, as Samuels did in his second year, and he was doing it 2 years younger. And it's not, I can understand how that doesn't sound like that big a deal, but if you're paying attention to college at all, you'll know that when you first play, you have the least amount of advantage. You don't know the offense as well. You're not as big. You're not as strong. You really haven't grown into all your athletic traits. Whereas Samuels at 20 years old, doing what Edwards did at 18 years old, he had most of his physical ability by the time he was able to put up the same production. And that's a big difference. And again, if that sounds weak to you, it's not. But also, I can understand that. But trying to predict something so slim, and it's already an outlier in and of itself, this guy needed something else. He needed his age. He needed his physical attributes to stand out in college. That's not a ding on him. It's just a sign that he needed an advantage to compete at the college level. And at the NFL level, there are no more advantages to be had outside of, as we've both mentioned already, draft capital. Draft capital can give him an extra boost over other players. And I do think he could be productive if given that boost. But if not, then I think he's going to struggle to stand out without something else going in his favor, because that's what he did in college, essentially. So I'm aware of the injuries as the best I can do with what I do with it in the profile, but then I'm going to look at what he did and the age that he did it in college when he was healthy. And then compare it, like I just did with Edwards, only a much larger sample size, to players since 2000, and players that have had a similar route as Deebo Samuels. Well, I just listed some from the last few draft classes, but they certainly are capable of filling in or maybe getting opportunities through being a good receiver in the NFL level. But I think they're going to need something like that. And then they're not going to be they're going to be a wide receiver 3 on your team. It's kind of the upside. Like Jamar Moore was constantly next man up, as the whole Green Bay offense did last year, because the team hasn't invested in them overly. They might be good and solid at what they do, but they don't stand out compared to someone else that can do what they do, if that makes any kind of sense today. But yeah, that's why I go with it.
Cool.
His college dominator, by the way, if you're interested in the college dominator, is currently, Edwards is going to do another year, but it's currently higher because he simply had more production for a longer time and was also involved in the rushing game. But like I lean towards breakout age over overall dominator rating, for example.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well,
it's a short episode so far, Jake.
No, I think it's short and concise. I think that's good. I was just scrolling through some Twitter with Deebo, Brad Kelly and John Lendyard, who both work for the Action Network. These guys are good guys. These guys are NFL draft Twitter guys, so they're not fantasy football related. But these guys scout players. They're good at what they do. I have a lot of clout in the draft community. Brad Kelly, who was a former wide receiver, I think he was D1 or D2. He writes for TQE, who's an affiliate of the pod, which we need to get a drop in there at some point again, maybe next season. He tweeted out earlier today that Deebo Samuel has taken over the South team practice, unguardable, safely a top 5 wide receiver for him. John Ledyard said pretty much the same thing. Deebo Samuel has been unreal and mobile, definitely moving up for me. And then Reese's Senior Bowl tweeted out the top 6 fastest speeds for the South. Deebo Samuel is number 1, clocked at 20.8 miles per hour. So he does have that, sustained longer speed. So yeah, I mean, he's been crushing the Senior Bowl. His routes have been great. Another thing that you like for a smaller wide receiver is he can get off press. His release, his footwork, his feet are so quick. And our buddy Zach Reed talks about wide receivers kind of having the same kind of footwork and moves as basketball players with crossover dribbles. And Doug Baldwin had a nice feature this last year where we kind of compared the same thing. He has the same kind of crossover footwork where he can just tap his feet and set up defenders and then hit his acceleration and go and blow past him. He's been really good. And for me, if a wide receiver can't win one-on-one against nobody else, I don't think they have a very good chance in the NFL. But it's something to check off the list that he's dominated the Senior Bowl, which I think he should have, because for me, he's the number 1 wide receiver there. So that's just a check mark for profile for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'd rather him look good at the Senior Bowl than not. It's one of those things, like, if anything, we're going to end up counting something twice, which is a bad idea.
Yeah, never do that.
We've got a 29-game sample size of him in college, and if you're going to weight the one game at the Senior Bowl with this uneven roster, we don't know how. You can't say, like, these players are all more skilled. This isn't a high level of competition. If anything, it's likely to be a lower level of competition because there's a bunch of defensive guys that might probably not go to the NFL, or aren't standing out, so they did come out into the NFL earlier. Perhaps to speculate, just as likely to be easier competition as it is to be harder competition. And he wasn't able to use those skills to stand out above the players on his roster, let alone the rest of the league, significantly. So yeah, I like it, and enjoy watching the Senior Bowl, and I'm definitely happy for him. It's not something I can wait at all, like, into what he might do in the NFL. But like I say, it's certainly something he has to do in order to sustain the positive things we've seen in his profile. So it's by no means a negative.
I hear you.
Lost Jake.
No, I hear you.
I
was just searching. I know Travis May isn't a huge fan of. You guys were talking about it in one of our fantasy chats on Twitter that you guys, wouldn't take him before the 3rd round. I think he's going to be a polarizing guy, and especially after the Senior Bowl, where he's going to rise up from where he was. He's going to, make me question some things too, because, we were talking before we started recording. It is funny, like, Deebo Samuel was not a guy that I was a huge fan of in Devy because he was getting so much hype. And now that he's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle of this draft class, at least early on, that's when I really start to like him again. But
I think those guys maybe settle for a reason. I've never looked because I'm not a Devy player or anything, but it always seems to be there's a player that used to be high in Devy and now isn't. And it always seems to be related around these kind of look like physical specimens. Like you were saying about Deebo, he's got some positive from what we can see without the combine physical traits. And I always think Devy must just have to rely on that a little bit more.
Yeah, partially. I mean, partially also is projecting players when they're freshmen or high school players to the NFL is just really hard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but what did he do in kindergarten, really? I mean, come on. I would say, draft capital is a significant elevator, and that's because of opportunity. A solid player in a good situation can do good things for fantasy.
Yeah.
And just to put it in perspective, especially what you were asking about with injuries, one example of that might be if he goes in the second round like Dante Pettis did, I'll be able to say that Deebo Samuels was able to stand out significantly more for his team than Dante Pettis ever has. And Pettis did some good things in his first year. So it's kind of an example how that draft capital can definitely sway where I'd take him or how interested I'd be in him. He did more for his team or stood out on his team more than Pettis ever did. If anyone wants a more positive player to compare him to. So
I like him more than I like Pettis. And he's not, he doesn't run a ton of routes. He's not a super sharp or refined route runner by any means, but when you play that
different
slot
kind of player.
When you play that slot position, I don't think you have to be quite as technical because basically you're leveraging space in the slot, and when you have that speed and you can set up defenders well, I think that goes a long ways, especially when you can understand zones and understand field awareness and what defenses are being played. When you have some of the athleticism, I think that can play out a little bit more than just being a great route runner, and we know that route running isn't everything.
Right.
So I think he's got to develop there a little bit, but I thought Christian Kirk needed to develop there a little bit too. And I think there's somewhat similar prospects as far as just kind of the traits that I see on tape.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that does it. I know Deebo Samuels had 2,076 receiving yards in his entire college career, 148 receptions in total of 5.1 receptions per game. I'm just listing stuff at you now. All of which are lower, interestingly enough, than Brian Edwards, who's only played 2 years. As I guess a raw stats comparison to why he looks so different.
Yeah,
and that wasn't a positive or a negative. They're just raw stats.
Yeah.
But
Deebo basically played 2 years in 5 years. So it's not a promising look when you look at that from that perspective, for sure. I just think that, of course, with the right opportunity, if he gets drafted on the second day, which I could definitely see, I think he could be a nice target in the mid-second round there. Right. Just because this class is not great. If we were talking about maybe a different class, maybe he would be more in that third round for me. But in this class, that's where I have him. That's where I kind of feel good about him, is in the mid-second round right now. And you would say early third?
Yeah, I'm mid. I'm not reaching for someone. I'm not reaching for him unless he falls to me. Essentially, at this point,
okay.
Just to keep the calm water.
Other people will be. Other people. I think one of my favorite phrases is just other people will be higher on him than you are.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, just don't hold your breath for Deebo. Let's wait until see what the draft brings about and celebrate a significantly good college player for what he was. Sure. I think that's as much hate as I can flow.
No, honestly, I thought you were very nice to Deebo tonight.
Well, sounding positive. But yeah, I think that about covers it. Like I say, I hate the feeling that we're gonna have to do everyone again after the draft, but we'll probably do something.
You know what I'm thinking?
Probably have very different opinions after the draft.
I think what we should probably do after the draft is not, kind of go against what we've been doing, is one player at a time. We're going to have some shows where we kind of just discuss the class and
post-draft show.
Yeah, we're going to have to. Maybe we could do a roundtable too.
That'd be fun.
Get a couple of film guys, get a couple metric guys, and maybe we could all have a 2-hour show and just kind of go over the draft class. I think that'd be fun.
Why not? I actually think that sounds really good. We should ask on Twitter about that or something. So, check out the Crossroads handle. There might be that question coming at you pretty soon to let us know if you think it's a good idea, and then we'll probably just do it anyway because it sounds like fun. But we would appreciate the feedback. Be sure to check out. I already said that. And be sure to give us a review if you haven't already, because we really appreciate that. And we are trying to get better, and we don't know how unless you tell us, because this is as good as we can do, as sad as that might seem to some of you. This is the best we can think to do. But we appreciate you checking it out. I hope you had fun. I hope you had fun. I did, like I always do here at the Crossroads. Jay, is there anything else you want to tell the people before we get out of here?
Yeah, go buy some t-shirts. We're on Amazon now at the Fantasy Football Outfitters. You can just type that in on Amazon. Our shirts are $20. We just released some alternate shirts with some new colors, so I think those look pretty sharp. So if you want to help us,
I think
support,
the orange one looks nice.
Yeah, if you want to help support the pod, feel free to buy a shirt and or leave us a review, rating. Hit us up on Twitter. Anything you can do for the amount of work we put into this thing. We just do this for fun and our enjoyment. So if you do enjoy the pod, if you can help in any way, we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those colors really do look good. I'm particularly keen on that orange one. I might have to buy one of orange shirts, just so you know. But thanks again for checking us out. Let's get out of here and go draft N'Keal Harry 101 overall. See you later.
Later. Oh, shit. All right. Stop. See, I like when they're kind of a little bit shorter, more concise, because I feel like we don't just kind of not ramble, but just I don't know. I just think they flow better when they're not too long.
I know what you mean. They're incredibly easy to edit.
That too. And I felt like we both talked a lot. So
yeah, right. I think we got it all in there.
Yeah, I don't know why I feel like the urge I got to get everything out when I talk, but
I have that same thing. I'm like, I'm gonna forget something.
Yeah, exactly. But then I forget. And then
later, I'm
anyways.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I didn't say that.
Later, it's like it would have been fine to forget it. Like you're gonna have to make the same points over and over again. So, not everyone's listening to you, Pete. Calm down.
38 minutes. That should be pretty easy.
Yeah. I might even struggle to fill the 30 minutes.
That's okay. 25 minutes is okay too, I think.
Right. They suffer from enough 35, 38-minute episodes. Yeah. So shrinking one might not be a good idea.
That's true.
No. People seem to like that last episode, man. Ones that seem to go worse for us always seem to come out better for everyone else.
I didn't even get a chance to listen to that one.
I edited it. That's about it. But yeah.
I think people just inherently like when we don't agree.
Yeah, I think that's part of hopefully the attraction for the show. That's kind of the whole point. Hearing two people agree with each other for an hour or half an hour isn't fun.
No, but
you're more.
But that's just part of it too. Is we're gonna have guys that we really don't agree on, and we're gonna have guys that we kind of understand both of our sides of it.
I say that, but
I was expecting a little more heat from Debo.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not like the thing with last week is I thought Jacobs could be like 102 and you weren't anywhere close. Where like this Debo, we were like a half a round or a round off, and it's a later round pick anyways.
It's a Dante Pettis comparison that cools me because I easily say he did more than Pettis. And so if he goes in the second round, I can see being interested. And that just cools me on a player like Debo. Whereas it's like you were saying about this class, so there's depth, no standouts. And that's true with either direction. Like Ryle Ridley is, I guess, going to be the guy people are going to get worked up with one way or the other.
Yeah, but, we'll probably have to talk about him at one point. But
not a hard conversation.
But the good thing, too, is like what was I gonna say? Like people are pretty inundated with a lot of these players. So like, we don't have to hit like every prospect.
God, we would never be able to.
You know, like a way I was like, oh, let's just start with like the best wide receiver, the best running. But like people are like, I don't need to know about,
You're right.
everybody.
And also just I like kind of like the way you do the polls. It's who's interesting but not the top right now. Because frankly, I've heard about the same players over and over again, then what's the point?
Right. But I think it is like I think we should maybe have a DK Metcalf episode.
Right.
Guys that are a little polarizing. Because that's going to be one where we disagree on quite a bit. So I think that would be a good episode. I haven't done any work besides Noah Fant on this tight end class, and everyone's saying it's really good.
Yeah, and I'm never quite sure because everyone says that was a good episode after every episode, and I'm like, it can't all be good. Come on. But this one, people honestly seem to go out their way.
No, this one definitely got more love than a lot of them do.
That's what I was feeling. I don't know what give Jake his number space means.
I have no idea either. Get in line. I don't know. It's got to be something like get in line.
I guess.
I don't know.
So many things people say in here, I don't know what they mean. It just makes I hit a GIF and hope it relates. Oh God. Have you done quarterbacks yet at all?
Not really. Like I've watched Haskins and Murray a little bit, and that's it. Quarterbacks are fucking hard, man.
Right?
They're fucking hard. I mean, yeah, it's hard, especially in a down class where quarterbacks are going to get pushed up. And
is this a damn class?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I like Murray. I don't love him. I like Haskins. I don't love him. It's not a good quarterback class.
Like higher or lower, and I know you liked him, but higher and lower than Josh Rosen for you personally?
Way lower, both of them.
Oh, wow.
I really liked Rosen.
Yeah, I know. But less than Baker, less than some others. So.
Less than Baker, less than
Lamar, I think.
Less than Lamar, less than Darnold.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I even like some of Josh Allen's traits. I don't know. I got an uneasy feeling about Haskins. Like I have this gut feeling he's going to be a bust.
Okay.
Even though he looks good, but I don't know. Ohio State's just so loaded. I don't know what to think. I gotta watch more of him.
Right.
I just don't have a strong opinion about either of them right now.
I don't have any opinion on them.
Two of them are going to be in the first round of Superflex rookie mocks or rookie drafts.
See, I'm going to try and develop quarterback opinions this year, which will be new for me.
But again, if Haskins goes to the Giants, I'm going to be pretty damn excited about him. So,
do you think opportunity works the same way for quarterbacks? Like, it seems to me like some step into opportunity and still suck. With a running back or a wide receiver, they can still do okay.
For sure.
At least for 1 year.
No, I still think he could be a bust with the Giants, but I'm going to be a lot more interested if he goes there. If he goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm not going to be all over Haskins.
Right.
You
I'm
know,
honestly
like,
just asking because I've never even tried to evaluate quarterbacks before.
yeah, I
Good
don't
luck to you
spend
guys.
I don't spend a lot of time. I don't know. I don't know. I just think
I form opinions quickly. Like I was just gonna say, if there's a quarterback I'm buying once it all settles, it's probably Darnold right now.
even like Superflex rookie drafts, I'm not going to pay out the ass for a quarterback usually, just because I'd rather pay a similar price for somebody I know that's good.
Right. I mean, there's
I
been a
mean,
few
it's
guys like Mahomes and Mayfield because the people I know who do that were so high on them. I reached for them in the first round, a couple of QB drafts,
yeah,
but outside of that, like, hell, why not?
yeah. I hear you.
But like
Well,
the
like
numbers,
last year, I got Darnold for like cheap as shit.
exactly, yeah. Oh, when it's something
In
like that, I got
Superflex.
I ended up getting Trubisky a few ways like that. Like people
Ah,
just come so down on him. It's like
yeah.
we don't know. We have no idea.
Well, everyone thinks he's just trash, and it's like, well,
So
is he great? No, but is he good? Yeah.
yeah, it literally comes down to if everyone's gone low on him, even though we have no idea, and they were drafted in the first 10 picks, I'll take a shot. Whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why you buy, players like Mahomes and you sell, or sorry, you buy players like Trubisky and you sell guys like Baker and Mahomes.
Right.
Just because I don't see how Mahomes' value could be any higher, and I don't see how Baker's could get that much higher. He's quarterback 3. Like like, is he a good quarterback? Yes, but for fantasy purposes, like,
It's like,
you know what he has to do to be quarterback 3? That's just, I mean, look what Cam Newton has done, and he's like quarterback
exactly.
11. He's got like
That's just
5
all.
top 5 performances. That's just,
People are always stupid with Newton. It's stupid.
I don't understand it.
I think it's a little juju syndrome as well. I mean, they're so fun as players that you just want them. And so people rack up their value. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But on the teams where I have Mahomes, my trading deadline hasn't come up yet. So I'm kind of debating it myself. Like I'm waiting for the trade deadline, see if I get any offers.
That's one QB or Superflex?
Well, I have them a few different places, and I haven't.
Well,
The trading deadline isn't on for any of them yet.
I left that Nickelodeon league, that best
Right.
ball league, and I had Baker and Mahomes in Superflex. But
That
I
league
had
that closed
no
down,
one. What?
I had a
Oh,
league that closed down, and I had Mahomes in it, and it was one quarterback, and I was kind of interested to see what happened with that.
yeah.
Close.
Well,
But
that was
yeah,
the thing. I had running backs. I had no wide receivers or tight ends in that best
I
ball
was
league.
just looking. I don't know. Did anyone take your place yet? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I'm looking at it.
I just didn't enjoy that league at all.
Yeah.
There's no waivers. Like,
I do hate the waiver thing. Like,
there's one
2
waiver a
days.
year.
What's the point in that?
That's insane. What if you have a bunch of injuries? Like, what are you supposed to do?
I don't know, I guess.
Like, oh, I don't have tight ends. Oh, I could probably just grab a couple off weight. No, it's not even open until mid-season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's ridiculous. I was like, I'm out of this thing.
I do hate the waivers.
All right, buddy, I gotta go. I gotta go to the bathroom.
All right, dude. Yeah, I think you're still in here, by the way. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right,
send me that file whenever you can.
Oh, I didn't? I thought I did.
I don't know. I haven't checked.
I sent it already.
All right, dude.
All right, man.
All right.
Later.
Talk to you later.